Welcome to Dragonian, your podcast for news and updates in Hong Kong and Taiwan. I'm your host, William.
Hi everyone, welcome to the episode 29 of the Dragonian podcast. This is your host, William. This week's episode will be the scale of politicians and people in power in gearing up gibberish, as these people, both in Hong Kong and Taiwan, are spreading gibberish, hate to feel, and seemed to just for announcing their presence in newspapers and headlines. A quick personal update, as I have finally fully recovered from COVID. This had made my voice and had taken a heavy toll on my voice, with an additional reason for the holiday season. We skipped last week, but this week's episode or last week's preparation, they would have definitely helped in this week's preparation. If you would like to learn more about what is happening in these two regions, please subscribe to our podcast, whether you're listening from our favorite podcast app or directly from YouTube or YouTube Music. Thanks for your continued support. And now, let's get right into news and topics within Hong Kong and Taiwan. So now, let's get into news and topics about Hong Kong first. So the first news is about the Chubby Hearts event, which is an event that was sponsored in a large event or the ACE scheme for 15 million Hong Kong dollars. This is a scheme, or the Chubby Hearts, chaired, or this idea initiated by Anya Hindmark, had its idea or had this Chubby Hearts event hosted in London in 2018 and 2022 respectively, which aimed to use these oversized love balloons to hope to attract tourists and increase tourist income, or to increase the amount of tourists and hope they can spend, or to mark it as an iconic city, or for love or for other things. In this year, in 2024, this event was moved to Hong Kong and was hosted by the Hong Kong Design Centre. However, it seems to be there is a point where there is a possible conflict of interest, with Adrian Cheng, the chair of the committee, which basically sponsored or controlled how the funds was used in organizing this event, had coincidentally also be the owner of K11, where there was a store where the store of Anya Hindmark was in. People were asked if this creates any conflict of interest, as basically the host or the initiator has a store or the main benefiter, apart from Hong Kong, had a store operates in properties owned by the chairman of the committee. People were asked if this creates any conflict of interest. However, this discussion actually led to nowhere, as 15 million wasted in Hong Kong, if this is the case, is just technically a very small sum of money when you consider the government currently has run a budget deficit of hundreds of billions of dollars each year for 3 years since the start of the pandemic. However, for all the discussions, it seems that this event or other similar events will basically go in place just as an idea or just as a symbol to attract more citizens and tourists, and for the tourism board to attract more tourists to visit Hong Kong. While at the same time, it also released last week's Lunar New Year figures. In here, it showed that approximately 650,000 people visited Hong Kong, with a supermajority of them coming from mainland China. At the same time, it also revealed that these tourists spend an average of 2.6 days in Hong Kong, which technically is much higher than the average of less than a day, or how the majority of them stayed in the city for less than a day in December and January. So back to the Chubby Hearts event. It seems that basically the discussion itself got nowhere. The event continues and was by the Hong Kong Design Centre, and things just got to nowhere. All the discussion about how the sum were used, about where there were any declaration of conflict of interest, or even if there are any idea of that that there is a conflict of interest or the discussion of itself took place. So next is about an article that was, or technically a letter to the editor, that was written by Stephen Ronge that stirred up discussions within the city. So Stephen Ronge, once a very high-profile cheerleader of Hong Kong, and at the same time a very high-profile personnel or a very high-ranking personnel previously working in Morgan Stanley while currently working in the Yale University, wrote on the Financial Times that last week proclaiming Hong Kong is over. It cited the loss of freedom, it cited the protests, it cited the other things that included, for example, the Chinese influence over Hong Kong, the stock and the housing market crackdown in China, and the loss of freedom especially, to cite it as the reason for why Hong Kong is technically lost. This itself wasn't a very great story, or this itself, as Financial Times regularly hosts discussions, or regularly hosts people in these opinion to the edit these opinion pieces regularly. It seems that this particular piece got into the hands, or got into the idea, or got into the notice for the local government. First, they try to smear the person who wrote this piece, which is they try to smear Stephen Ronge, to smear that they're saying that just one foreign person or just one personnel saying that this should not be the case or Hong Kong is over doesn't imply that Hong Kong is over. And it tried to cite, and furthermore, people in other areas of government, which included the chair of the financial board, not the financial secretary, but people who report directly to him, saying that Hong Kong has issued more than basically billions of bonds, 500 billion USD worth of bonds in the first half of 2023, and cited that this showed that Hong Kong is still a working metropolis and still is a place for all. However, it seems that they have basically taken this, or the discussion itself, the smear itself, seems to have lost the symbolism, or seems to be not tackling the symbolism, where it basically signals the universal community, or the universal business community, or overseas business community, that even previously cheerleaders for which host technically foreign passports, cheerleaders for Hong Kong, now, even after because of the national security law and because of other potential laws such as the Article 23, now has the idea, or now sees Hong Kong as a dimming a pearl of the Orient, with Hong Kong or becoming just a yet another Chinese city with technically no other difference. So this discussion, it is a bit depressing, I would say, and basically everyone is just sprawling out gibberish. The Hong Kong government itself is just sprawling out its own attacks, sprawling out its gibberish, sprawling out just nothing but gibberish to basically comfort people, or to try to calm the international community that Hong Kong is still a working city. In response, at the same time, Regina Yip also wrote to a letter to the editor saying that basically it's just because of the US market, or just because of the US sanctions, had actually been the main culprit of why the stock market in Hong Kong was falling, instead of issues within China and issues within Hong Kong which affects the labor market or the stock market at most. So these are issues that topped Hong Kong's stories last week. There are also other small scale stories. So that below is a very quick recap, or a very quick announcement of some of the topics. So first is about the Lunar New Year holidays. So in China, Lunar New Year holidays are 7 days, but in Hong Kong it's just 4 days, including one Sunday. So in total, in the 7 days instead of the 4 days, 1.25 million people, 1.25 million mainland tourists visit Hong Kong, but at the same time, only 100,000 other tourists from other countries visited the city. Next, at the same time, there are also some discussions about the protest with a glory coffee shop, which directly translates or from its Chinese name 願榮光咖啡館, basically as a slogan, closed last week because of the quote New Hong Kong. At the same time, it also showed that the Chubby Heart itself had currently approximately 100,000 people, not 100,000 people visited the city. There are also some discussions about setting up nurturing subsidies for children aged 0 to 6 by offering them up to 20,000 Hong Kong dollars per year to tackle the local population crisis. And basically all the discussions, it seems that Hong Kong is basically at a very grim or at a very interesting place, as we are also seeing the discussion of whether the judicial independence is still within the city, as this is what Hong Kong was built on. So next up, this will be news about Taiwan. So first is about the pork incident. So this pork incident was an incident happened in early February, which was also discussed in episode 27. At the time, we discussed that the Taichung City's health department announced it at that time last week that they found traces of xylitol, 0.002 ppm of it, in the routine inspection of pork products in Taiwan. However, after a lot of discussions and a lot of findings, it seemed that this seems to be as a direct result of lab contamination instead of the pork itself containing this xylitol before entering the lab. As technically there are no people who are both fabricating this chemical within Taiwan, while at the same time it only imported a very small amount of it outside, imported to Taiwan, just as used for standardized testing equipment. So this discussion, it had led to quite a lot of discussions that led to the idea, or it had a resemblance of how eggs were being marked in late 2022, in 2023. It was also discussed in this the lack of eggs, the eggs incidents, other contaminated products, and etc. However, in last week, in Kaohsiung, in the Kaohsiung city, recalled some products related to chili powder, where industrial additives were used, which were banned as a food additive, and was forced to have this recall. As a result, both the Taiwan People's Party, the Chinese Kuomintang, and even the ruling Democratic Progressive Party had a discussion, had a consultation, or had a pan-party consultation section last week on discussion whether they should request the Executive Yuan to have a special report on to host a special discussion on food safety landscape in Taiwan. However, in the discussion last Friday, it showed both the Taiwan People's Party, both the Chinese Kuomintang and the ruling, or the executive ruling, or the party that controls the executive branch, the Democratic Progressive Party, requesting discussion to start in place only at Tuesday, which was today, and have the original plans to postpone by a day. However, the Taiwan People's Party, its caucus lead, Casey Huang, basically requested to deviate from the norm and request to host another special session on Wednesday, just with like 3 days of previous notification, which basically deviates from previous discussions. As a result, this didn't pass, and what happened is that the Tuesday was not a special session dedicated for food safety, and technically this was just a part of like what they call in Taiwan 作秀, basically just to act and just to discuss, just to God's gift instead of like real words. So basically this is just another example of how Taiwan's legislative branch is now not working as intended, just because of people vowing for political power, or vowing for newspaper, or just for a place for news headlines, vowing for news headlines, and vowing for a place in newspaper, and to continue its idea or to continue its position as an executive person, or as a person who controls the party, or not the party, but controls the legislative branch, hoping to increase its power. Furthermore, in itself, there was also the Chinese Kuomintang previously first requesting something that violates directly the rules or the rules of engagement within the Legislative Yuan, where there should be no temporary session in official sessions. So this is just a lot of gibberish from both sides. Even when the Democratic Progressive Party hope to discuss this, hope to try to just to put over something, it didn't work at all. So this is just the first piece, which is basically food safety, like contaminated pork, and also how the current Legislative Yuan is running. Literally just running in circles, not doing anything in for real value, and technically in Chinese 空转, just doing nothing, but just for newspapers, topics, and others. So next is about the KetoNet incident, which was also discussed in the episode 27. This was not because of me not wanting to discuss all the things or to find new topics, but how this event continues to burn and spread, and the issue itself spread like bonfire, had basically out of control. It was just literally out of control. As basically this not only affects how net itself, but also the idea of governance in Taiwanese society, and had a resemblance or force or made the Taiwan's civil society had a resemblance or just let them thought of previously how the Chinese Kuomintang abused its power. Furthermore, this incident also created another incident or revealed another issue, which was related to ash that was generated from trash burning. But that was another part of the story. So the current case now evolves to a misuse of power, or intent of misuse of power, for the defiance of rules and norms within the Keelung City government and directly against George Xie. It also triggered a recall petition within the Keelung City to request or to let the locals to recall the city mayor, as this whole discussion showed that it seems that the Keelung City itself is now in a very dire shape. In fact, this response, as a response, the mayor Joshua had closed his comment section for his own official Facebook page, citing bots and like the opposition armies, like people from the opposition, like the last mayor, the sister of the last Keelung City mayor, are just mirroring the image of the Keelung City itself. So this response was showed how the current Chinese Kuomintang tried to turn this incident into just a direct result or direct issue from another incident that happened just because of the previous mayor's miscalculation and or misuse and abuse of power. So it seems weird, but this is the current case. However, this discussion of the incident had actually led to a discussion on the abuse of power of the current Keelung City Mayor George Xie. In fact, so just a bit background. So in Keelung City, there is a waste incineration plant and it generates ashes. In the city itself, previously, a local, very successful merchant used his own land previously, originally intended to build like a castle or to build a personal retreat, turned it into a incineration processing plant. So it turned that piece of land into a ash processing plant. However, the original idea was that this would be a very stable income. It would also be a place to like for that particular unnamed like to contribute or to give back to the community or the local community. However, after in last year, this discussion or the contract expired. Even with a better rating, a reduced idea, reduced cost, there wasn't or the gas incineration or the processing plant itself in Keelung was stripped of its ability, this power to use the land as a processing plant, and at the same time of its ability to like process the ash, even with a lower price. Instead, the Keelung City mayor opted for another plant in Kaohsiung, which offers to process the ash in a much higher cost, plus a very high transportation cost at the same time. As a result, the incineration plant owner in Keelung got to the court and pressed for damages or compensation for damages. As a result, the court awarded the ash plant owner $25 million Taiwanese dollars for the damages done, just because of how the Keelung City mayor is abusing the power. This other event actually showed how the city mayor is abusing his power, and the response was very interesting. And just last day or the day before in Sunday, the mayor itself posted a Facebook Live in very late night, accusing the former mayor, the former mayor and his sister, the intention of destroying the reputation of the current Keelung City government, and saying that they don't have money, so they have the intent to be corrupt. because like his family had a lot of money, so they do not have the intent to corrupt, and because they have money, they just want to make Keelung better. This actually raised memories of abuses of power in the Keelung itself. So all the discussions, all the issues itself, just basically pointed that it seems that the city, or it seems that Keelung has a very bad discussion or a very bad day, while at the same time it also showed how the abuse of power within the Keelung city's government, plus the previous case case for how the Taichung city's mayor is overreacting to the contaminated pot incident, showed that basically the people in the opposition are smearing the parties and not following rules to the extent, in an unimaginable extent. So we hope you find this episode actually informative. Although I've been recovering from COVID, my voice still hasn't fully recovered, so you may hear a bit changed voice. The voice may be a bit deeper than normal, but yes, I hope that we can still have a quicker update for events that happened in Taiwan and Hong Kong last week. So if you find this episode informative, please subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Furthermore, if you have any feedback, please let us know in the comments or drop us an email at william@dragonianpod.com. Thanks again for your continued support. We will be back next week with more news from Hong Kong and Taiwan. Have a safe and happy week ahead. Goodbye!